Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network, UFO, Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey for years now. So thank you, Folgers. We love you, and it would not be the same without you. So thank you. Also, a big thank you to Justice Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his voice, and his music for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on any of your favorite platforms. So check him out. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the Outer Realm. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. He also specializes in the horror genre, of course, and can do any commission piece. He's not limited to that, of course. He's a fantastic artist. So again, check him out. So tonight, Amelia is with me, just saying.
I'm here. I'm
She's
waving.
here. She's an audio only. She's a little bit under the weather, so she's
Nobody
here.
wants to see me right now.
Yeah, you'll hear her every now and then. She'll just hear this little voice come out of the ether and just sticks out there. So anyway, she's there. So anyway, guys, it's that time of year again that we have been nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Awards for Best Female Host. So you're going to be seeing a lot of stuff coming up on the network over the next few weeks. And as the information unfolds for voting, we'll be pleading with you at that point. But anyway, just a heads up. So tonight we welcome the return of our dear friend and I would say frequent flyer guest, because we just love him to death, Preston Dennett. And he's going to be discussing his book, Human Levitation, A True History and How-To Guide. I'm exceptionally, or extremely, should I say, I'm exceptionally excited to hear about it, but I'm extremely interested in the how-to part of it. That could be dangerous. So I'm already like a pretty aggressive driver. I can't imagine me as a flyer. So, I know, imagine. Anyway, without further ado, Preston.
Michelle. Hi, Amelia.
Hi. I know. Look really, really closely. You can see me.
Way down.
And my red eyes. I have really bad eye infection, and I didn't think that was something I should be showing anyone. But tomorrow should be better. Tomorrow should be better. On my second day of antibiotic drops, so I should be coming at you with my big mouth tomorrow on screen.
Well, sending you healing energy.
Thank you. It's something I lived through. We've been through this before, Michelle and I, unfortunately.
It's the dog's fault.
This time it was the dog's fault. I said to her in a text today, I don't remember if I told you yesterday when we were working, but I've got two really bloody eyes and they're so red that my irises look like Christmas green. I said, it's just so bad. But I said to her, I really think that when they sent me back to Earth, they thought, give her every issue imaginable and see how she fares. Seriously.
You're doing all right.
Back and said, make her allergic to every opiate so she can never get better. Make her allergic to penicillin. Give her pink eye every once in a while. Keep her on her toes.
You're small, but you're mean and you're good.
Yeah. Don't let her ever be allowed to take a leave or Motrin. It's like, really? But anyways.
You're about the size of the little Buddha belly.
I'm a little taller than him.
I know.
I'm a little taller than him.
I like to rub his belly in case it's like the Buddha. You can make a wish.
You know, it's so funny because I always say that's a backwards teddy bear.
I know.
When I saw that pattern, but yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Preston, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing really good.
Yeah,
Oh.
long time no see since Monday.
Right?
There we go. Put this up. This is why people, Preston Dennett, Dolly Saffron have their own show here on the network every Monday night, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. So you guys have to come and check them out because it really, really, it's an incredible show. So mark your calendars because it's going to be really every Monday nights. You guys have a great guest, but it's going to be really interesting next week. So there you go.
Cool. And Michael sends his regards.
Aw, very cool.
There we
Yeah.
go. Excellent. So tonight, what do you have for us? The whole human levitation thing. How
Yeah,
tried.
I'm so excited about this because honestly, I don't get a whole lot of opportunities to talk about it for whatever reason. I don't know. But I don't know, it's really special to me. Writing this book was so much fun. And I got interested in it because we had a family friend who had this experience.
Wow.
And
How many people can say that?
yeah, well, probably more than you might think.
They're just
Wow.
not talking about it, you think?
Yeah,
I want
well,
in.
I don't know. I started asking everybody when I found out, I didn't actually believe her really. I mean, I kind of did. I know she's not going to lie. But I had never really heard of it until I remembered that there was a really famous saint that I'd read about in college, Saint Joseph of Cupertino, who had allegedly levitated. And then I thought, well, there's that other lady, a nun, Saint Teresa of Avila.
Right.
Two saints.
Yeah. So I started doing research. I'm kind of just a back burner, not really active at it. But when I found out that our family friend had levitated, I'm like, I wonder if anyone else I know. So I asked everybody. And boy, did I get a lot of eye rolling and sniggers and like, what the hell are you talking about? People can't fly. I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe they can. And I did find another friend, actually.
So you had a couple of people in your circle that knew how to do this. That's extremely interesting. The only time I've ever seen it, and I had to wonder because you almost have to question everything you see nowadays. You don't know if it's AI created. But then I started noticing it was floating around on the circuit with a lot of these paranormal shows that show videos. And it was a little girl and her mom. I don't know if you've seen that one. And they right? It was that in Russia, and that little girl was floating around in the forest. And there's this guy videotapes going, what? Is this happening? And as soon as they saw him, she just dropped, like went right down, and they just wandered off.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Somewhat, I think. That was an interesting piece of video footage. It's somewhat controversial. There are people who think it's faked, and probably could be these days. I don't know. I haven't interviewed the people. But yeah, it's very much like that. I did think that was a pretty interesting piece of footage.
Right.
Would have loved to have been there.
Me
if
too.
It was faked, it was
Oh my gosh.
I think I'd be throwing holy water at them, but yeah.
Yeah, it was very compelling. But again, you have to question everything nowadays. It's not, there's not a lot of people out there that are still using film, unfortunately. Everything's digital now. And now you have AI. So you have to question everything.
But there are some good pieces of footage, which I'm going to put up some pictures at some point because you gave me the control to do that.
I'm giving you the control. Whenever you're ready to go, we're with you. We'll follow along.
Well, let me just show the book real quick.
Okay, beautiful.
Wow.
There it is. So
the new one.
This is the book I put out. And after doing the research on the subject, I was shocked because it is very well verified. It appears in all cultures pretty much across the planet. I found over 300 cases. There have been other books on this subject, but they're few and far between and hard to find. And there hadn't been a major study in almost 100 years. So I thought, now is the time to sort of dig into this. And yeah, it appears in all cultures. It's interpreted differently. It's approached differently. But more than 300 cases involving usually people who are of a spiritual bent. By that I mean
okay,
monks,
that's interesting.
nuns, priests.
Yeah.
In Africa, you probably call them sorcerers, or in the Native American culture, medicine men.
Shaman, things of that nature. Then,
Exactly. Yeah.
how far back did you find? Well, I'll say evidence, but documentation.
Oh gosh, 2,000 years back.
Wow, really?
Yeah, really.
That
Wow.
makes sense because the Buddhists have been doing it for a long time. It's all part of the Enlightenment, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true.
Yep.
And the frequency.
That's true. That's true.
Very much so. Yep. So it goes way, way, way back, and much farther back than you would think.
Right. So where do you want to start with that show
well,
and tell?
I think probably the earliest example I could find comes from the founder of the Yoga Sutras, or the first guy who really publicized it. And he's known as, let me see, Patanjali. I'm probably butchering his name a little bit, but here I'll bring up his picture. Well, it's a drawing. Let me see if I can.
Look at you and your own command control.
I know. Preston's a maniac with the presentation button now.
He has access to the board. Yeah.
I've seen him on his show. Bam, bam, bam. It's like, wow.
This is weird. Are you sure you're a guest?
He makes it look easy.
Wow.
So this is the guy, and he lived some 2,000, 2,500 years ago. They're not sure.
Right.
But apparently levitation is one of what we would call siddhis, or SIDDs, SIDDHES. And these are superhuman powers that manifest on the pathway to evolution. I was talking to Dolly about it. She's like, yeah, these actually come from the Bantu people of Africa, but migrated to India. And the mystic masters there started teaching it.
Oh, wow.
This was a long time ago. And
Wow.
The Yoga Sutras are usually credited to this guy, Patanjali, who I guess popularized it. And levitation is one of the, I think, 5 major SIDDs that people can attain, supernatural powers. I'm not sure I would use that term supernatural because it's kind of misleading. It's natural. This is something we can all do. There's other abilities like, let's see, invisibility, superhuman strength, immunity to fire, a bunch of these things.
Oh, like the
But you see that, with fire
coal
walkers.
walkers. Yeah.
Yes. You know,
Which they actually called obstacles. I thought that was interesting.
just a little obstacle. Yeah.
Wow.
What happens is, some people get enamored with these abilities, and it stops their spiritual progress. But they appear, they're markers that show that you're on the right pathway to spiritual enlightenment.
It's interesting because you have to be in a spiritual enlightened state to be able to achieve these abilities, but yet you become so enamored with the whole physical part of these abilities that you just stop evolving then.
Yeah. It's a danger, apparently. That's why they called it obstacles.
Right.
And I can see that because, man, if I could levitate, that would be an awful lot of fun. But it's you don't have to be a yogi, honestly, because looking through the actual case studies, I found cases of housewives, businessmen, farmers. There's a stage during childhood.
Oh.
I put this in the book called the floating stage because I'm still getting cases from people who contacted me about age 5 to 12 where people spontaneously levitate. And,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Spontaneously. Okay.
So is there any indication as to why certain children would just spontaneously start? Because I mean, I think I would have stroked out if my kids started floating about the house. Just,
right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, not that I could really figure out. I mean, again, people who are of a spiritual mind, it does seem to appear a little bit more often. But not always. I mean, I asked Dolly about it. because our dear friend Dolly, my co-host of our show,
Mm-hmm.
she experienced it, and it was during that age mostly. She did have, it went on into her teenage years and beyond, really.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I collected like 20 cases of just kids running down the side. Well, the other lady that I had two people in my circle who'd done it. One was a friend of my sister-in-law's, really. I knew her, but she wasn't my friend. And she described how she would go running down the stairs and suddenly float down the stairs. She said it did it several times, and a couple of times up the stairs. And then one day it just stopped. Could not recreate it.
Oh, wow. I wonder what changed.
I don't know. It's kind of like children sort of grow out of remembering their past lives and seeing ghosts.
Okay.
Well, you're talking about prepubescent ages where a lot of, they have a lot of these amazing abilities, and then puberty hits, and then all of a sudden it's like some children do lose their ability as, their mediumship, I guess.
Exactly.
I wonder if it's the same idea.
Well, it's connected to this because after studying all the accounts, I think there's no real qualitative difference between different accounts, but I found 7 different categories of levitation. And I think you can break them down into that. And one would be ecstatic levitation. And that's usually the nuns and monks who are praying to Jesus or God, or reach a trance state of what they would call ecstasy.
Like raising of their vibration so high.
And boom, they would just float up. This is what would happen to St. Joseph of Cupertino, St. Teresa of Avila. So that's one category. And really when it really started to get noticed was in Europe in the Middle Ages. But it's in all cultures. And in the Eastern cultures, like India, they treat it a little bit differently. This is I call it meditative levitation, because they recognized it. They know what it is. They developed abilities or methods, I should say, on how to foster it, how to actually learn how to do it. So they had a whole process that they could go through to achieve this state. And according to them, it's one of the easier, quote, SIDS to attain. So that's meditative. And another I call crisis levitation, because this occurs spontaneously when you are falling off a cliff, usually.
Yeah.
And that happened to Dolly. She tripped down the stairs, floated right down. It happened to, well, I'll go over some of the cases, but I just wanted to get the categories out first.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're looking like there's other people here who have had experiences. Amelia, can you even see these from where you are? Do you want to get that?
No, I can see it. I learned how to enlarge the the font in the comment section, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yes, Izzy Beth says, I had this as a child. I was running real fast and jumping, and I jumped up and floated for a few seconds. Also jumped over a 1-story roof house and landed very softly.
Wow.
Softly. Wow. I used to jump off my dad's roof.
So
that didn't end well.
right there.
That softly is amazing.
Another one here.
Yes. Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Says, hello, Preston and Michelle. This is something I have experienced in the past, and it scared the hell out of me, and that was levitation. So did it stop because it scared you, Jackie? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's interesting because you're just talking about it, and here's just 2 people who randomly come out and say, yeah, I levitated.
Yeah.
To me, this is
There's
like
book
what?
2. There's book 2.
I know.
It's just starting.
I do want to put out another book, actually.
There you go. Contact Preston Dennett.
I'm getting so many more cases. But yeah, those floating stage for kids, that's one of the main categories for sure. So it doesn't surprise me. And yeah, it can be scary. Winston Churchill thought he could levitate when he was a kid. Jumped out a window and broke his leg. Poor guy.
Clearly not Winston. I know.
Well, Winston had a logical and tech mind, right? So it's I would imagine that was a different experience for him. He would not have been able. See, I think about it. He was a child. He jumped out. He didn't die. Now, could that be someone going, well, wait a second. We need you for the war.
Could be. Yeah, I mean,
He
there's
can't die. Pick him up.
another guy that comes to mind is Tesla. He thought he could
Yes.
levitate. I don't think he actually said he actually did,
Right.
but
Right.
he's a super genius, and it doesn't surprise
Sure.
me he did have that
If
ability.
anybody could have figured it out, it would have been Tesla, I would think. Wow.
Yeah, so there's-
But it
Oh.
begs to question when you say that, housewives and business people have levitated. We always believed, at least I've believed, that when you're in levitation, it's a high frequency, it's something that you really, really practice. How a businessman to me does not have a clear mind. That's a mind that's constantly going. So I wonder how this is possible, or if it's something that they're just born with.
I think some people have had past life experience with this, and it manifests sort of spontaneously. I don't know. It is quite bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely happens to normal people. Sometimes when they're least expecting it. And that lady I was talking about who could fly up and down the stairs as a kid, she said, I don't know if this is important, but I could outrun any boy in the neighborhood. And when I'd start running, I was just on the tips of my toes, and I'd start going in bigger and bigger strides. And yes, that does absolutely pertain to this, because there's another category called running levitation.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
And
Wow.
this is something the Tibetan monks could do. They had a name for it. It's called Longdum Pa. They could actually travel across the country at high speeds running. And this isn't every culture. And so when Kelly was her name, reported this, I'm like, yes, that's absolutely a form of levitation.
That it reminds me of that film, is his Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And because I'm seeing them in my mind, and I see a lot of those type of films where they're running and you just see them and they start running just like you're explaining, and then they just start.
Like
And I thought,
ninjas,
that's
too.
good theatrics. But from what you're saying, this would probably come from that. Like,
Yeah, I cried when I saw that film. I'm like, oh my God, look. I love that movie.
No.
I never thought about that, because when you see the ninjas too, their practice, they are elevated when they're in midair climbing up a wall and land so softly, and they're so quiet. Wow. You're giving me a lot to think about.
All
We
right.
haven't even begun. I'm just starting on the categories.
Let's go.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've got 2 more categories.
Take it away, Preston.
One is
This is
mediumistic.
fabulous.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I don't think a lot of people know this.
No.
But another category, and it's probably the most prominent, is mediumistic levitation. Because in most of these cases, it seems to be that it's coming from an internal source. It's your organism that's doing it. But with mediumistic, there's spirits who are lifting people up. I'm not entirely sure that it's an external force or internal in those cases, but absolutely, there's a lot of cases of people who are, in a trance or doing mediumship work, and whoosh, they come right up off the ground, or they're possessed.
I'm
with
starting to feel left out.
a dark spirit. I mean, this comes up in all kinds of bad hauntings. People are thrown up across the room, levitated.
Yeah.
The demonic one we're more used to seeing on television, and a little bit more acquainted with, if I could use that. But the running one, wow.
Yeah, and that appears in Native American culture too. They called them the running men. And there was there's a really interesting case where this guy who was a Native American was working with some, cowboy folks. I forget what you call them, frontiermen.
Yes.
And they had to travel to another city. And they're like, we're going to go on horseback. Come with us. He's like, no, I'll meet you there.
What?
Right.
and he creeps off, right? And so they let him go. And curious, they decide to follow him. And they saw his footprints, which I believe it was in the snow. And they were normal strides, but then they started getting longer and longer and longer and longer, and then they disappeared. And so they galloped to the town. It took them all day. And he was there, of course, like, it took you so long.
Yeah.
They verified that he had been there for a full day. He got there almost immediately.
Wow.
That's pretty fascinating. That's really fascinating.
This is
It's like that's just beyond levitation. That's quick.
That's
Yeah.
Is
It's
there a
related to
loop? Is
teleportation.
there time travel here? Like what's going on?
Teleportation.
Teleportation. Okay.
Yep. There are people who get so good at it that they can actually just doink doink, and off they go.
I want to be able to do that straight into the Bahamas.
You can. People are doing it. There's a group in, I think it's Haiti, called the Flying Men, who have learned how to do this.
Right.
And it's a very elite club. I mean, you have to go through all the spiritual disciplines, but
That's so incredible.
How long does it take for them to learn a spiritual discipline like that? I know it varies depending on you, but what are we looking at? Like decades or?
Not necessarily. It all depends on how much effort you put forth, what level of spiritual evolution you're at, whether you're willing to, do what it takes. Because according to Eastern religions, they've got a whole method of doing it. But some of these, the nuns and monks of the Middle Ages, were doing it as little kids. They would just sit there and pray and pray and pray. And St. Catherine of Siena, whoosh, she was like one of 7 or 9 kids, and she was super religious. And her friends were like, well, what are we going to do? They built her a little shrine in the backyard, and she started levitating right away.
I wonder if St. Pio ever levitated. He was very devout from a small child. At 2-3 years old, he didn't want to do anything but practice his faith.
There's been several times I'm like walking along and suddenly I'm levitating. I'm like, I've discovered it. I've done it. I can't wait to show everyone. And then I wake up. I'm like, it was a dream, right?
Right.
I levitate in my dreams.
So they don't even let you remember.
But it's connected to that, by the way. It's connected to astral travel. It's connected to the astral body. This is what most researchers believe. And you can point to this because the last category I want to mention is sleeping levitation. And this happens when people are asleep in bed and they're not aware of it, but their spouse or brother or sister or whoever comes up and there they are floating right above the bed. Happens in case after case after case after case. I can't imagine what that would be like, coming out and seeing someone floating above the bed.
Bam. Yeah. It's a rough landing. Yeah, that is actually really interesting because it goes to show you just how powerful the subconscious is, where you can completely let everything go. Because I imagine to a degree you would have to to get into that state where it is so natural.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the story of the lady, our family friend.
Yes.
Here she is.
For all the world to see. Hopefully she doesn't mind.
Well, she's stunning. Why would she mind?
This is her much younger. Her name is Mary Frank. I did ask if I could use her real name. She's like, fine.
That didn't sound like okay.
Well, she's okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've known her since I was, just 5 years old, 6. So she's kind of my surrogate mother. After my mom passed away, she sort of came along and provided that maternal love that I needed, that we all needed.
That's beautiful.
So she's just this amazing lady who's been through so much in her life. And she's like, yeah, I levitated. So I did this big, long interview with her because, man, it was interesting. And she described how when she was 5 or 6 years old, she had to go to the doctor with her parents. And they went up into the doctor's office and she runs down the corridor. They're in a building, right? Turns the corner. No one can see her now. And she's in the air. And she's flying right down the corridor. Of course, she looks around her thinking, what is happening? But nope, she was off the ground, she says, about 2 feet.
Wow.
A sense of sort of glowing lightness around her, but nobody was there. And she was thrilled and flew all the way down the corridor. This is a corridor that goes around in a horseshoe shape around the building. And she turned the corner and went all the way down to the end and landed softly on her feet. She said it was a good 30 seconds. Just flying down. And landed and was thrilled and went running back to her parents like, I flew. And they're like, shut up, you didn't. That's impossible.
Shut up, you didn't.
No, I did. Tried so hard to recreate it, but never was able to.
Oh, so this was a one-off.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Not all that unusual.
Right.
But yeah, that's the one that really got me researching it. And she did it. She flat out says, yes, this happened to me.
Right. It's funny. So why do you think that you could do a total one-off like that and not be able to, like, she tried to recreate it? Did she recreate what was going on in her life at that time? Did she explore what her mindset was like at that time? Because how do you just take off and then you just, that's it, one time. Teasing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nah, forget it. We don't want you.
She did have a lot of very spiritual experiences.
Right.
Throughout her life. She had a near-death experience. She was healed of chronic cancer.
Wow.
She had some UFO experiences she's not super comfortable talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yes. Amazing lady. And really nice. I'm really working hard to do the right thing with the world,
Right.
Just a really good person.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. There's not enough of those around.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's absolutely what got me to start studying this. And God, I was so shocked to find out how many reports there were of this in every culture. And here's another guy I'm going to bring up. This guy is Milarepa. He's known as the Indian saint, India yogi Christ. And he left the first written record of anybody who ever levitated. He actually wrote about it and what it feels like and how he did it and what happened.
When?
This was in, let's see, I wrote it down, 1052, 1015.
Wow.
About 1,000 years ago.
And thought to document it too. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and he got so famous during his time. I'm super famous. He was levitating all over the place, and farmers would stop what they're doing, like, look, oh my God, this guy's flying across the country. And he ended up living off as a hermit because he just created way too much attention. Mm-hmm. His story is very well documented. There's various translations of what he wrote. But what he said, in essence, was that he was meditating. He was very spiritual from a very young age and started levitating in his dreams. And one day it translated into his waking life, just like that. So that is your first clue as to the mechanics behind this, how this actually works.
Well, I think the fact that we were going so far back, and correct me if I'm wrong because you've done the research, but nowadays, let's face it, we're suppressed. They put stuff in the food, they, to keep us suppressed from evolving too much with abilities. And that's my own personal thought. Back then, they didn't have any of that. Everything was pretty natural. Au naturel, nothing like today. Do you think that has something to do with it? Because it starts right as children for us.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. The world was very different. Religion was a much more powerful influence than it is today.
Yes.
And that's where it really started to, take off, was throughout the Middle Ages with the people who are very much priests and monks and nuns. Remember that show, The Flying Nun?
Yeah, somebody mentioned that in chat. Who remembers that show? I do.
Who knew that was, nonfiction?
They didn't have any outside interferences. They didn't have the internet, the television, the telephone, the dance classes and piano classes, and they had more time to just think. Yes, they learned to use what was around them and just feel rather than question, because nobody really knew anything. It was all experimentation.
That's right, and non-suppressive frequencies and things to just keep our vibrations so low, because you have to have high vibrations to be that spiritual to be able to achieve this at will, I think. Anyway, continue on.
When anyone had a number
what
of
she
kids,
said.
I think it was the first kid who would inherit the house, right? The first son.
Mhm.
would follow the profession. The second would go to war. The third would be a priest, or whatever order it was. But one of them was basically sent off to the religious order. So we had a lot more people, going in that direction than we have today.
Right. I agree.
That's absolutely a factor. And the world was pretty much not literate at that point. So no one was reading or anything. What else was there to do? And we had these people that they called wonder workers or thaumaturges, or hermits who would just go off in the forest and meditate. And boom, they started having communication with animals and the ability to heal and multiplication of food.
Yes.
They would get really well known.
Yes.
Eventually,
there's no interference with anything. Life right now is essentially interference.
Exactly. Right.
So
this remained largely unknown until this guy came along. And this is Colonel Eugene de Rochas. And he started collecting accounts of saints. He was the first to say, hey, guys, look. Well, he wasn't the first. There was another guy from the Middle Ages, Herbert Thurston, who started documenting it. And, the first form of writing was really hagiography, which was biographies of the saints.
Right.
So a lot of these, that's when it first started getting recognized as an actual ability. The word levitation wasn't in the dictionary for years. It's relatively recent. But he wrote the first book ever, which was basically called A Collection of Documents on Human Levitation.
Where was he from?
Yeah, France.
Oh.
We owe a lot to the French. They were there for...
Check and see if there's any connection, Michelle.
I know. Well, I'm not levitating, so I don't know.
Even if it's spelled different, it doesn't mean anything. It could still be lineage.
Nah, man, I married that one.
Yeah, I know, but it would be your children's lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Preston. Go ahead.
They were the first to take it seriously. They were part of the whole Age of Enlightenment.
Right.
There was a whole period of the French magnetizers.
Right.
Franz Mesmer, he was one who got really famous. But they learned that you could actually do levitation. And he collected all these accounts and wrote the first book. Was followed not too much longer later by Olivier Leroy, another French guy, who wrote the seminal book on the subject called La Levitation, Levitation.
Right.
Which he was the first to not only put together accounts of saints, but sorcerers and medicine men and people from different cultures.
Wow.
And that's when people really started to take it seriously and recognize that this was a natural human talent. It's probably latent in most people, but absolutely is nothing special, and anyone can do this. And I've got modern day accounts. So, and I've interviewed, I'm like,
they don't want us to know this. The powers that be most certainly don't want us to know this.
Yep.
I'm sure this would have been natural. Everything natural has been suppressed in our world.
What a shame, because
it is.
The accounts of people who can do this, it is so amazing. Here, I'm going to bring up another guy here.
Yes, please keep going, man. We'll follow along.
Because this guy is absolutely my favorite levitator of all times. They called him the Flying Friar of Europe.
I love it. I just love the tag words. This is great.
His name is Giuseppe, and he's actually known as Giuseppe Desa of Cupertino, Italy.
Ah, there you go, Bubbles.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, my
wow.
goodness.
That's what I look like when I find a shoe sale at Jimmy Choo. It's like
this guy. God, I wish I could have lived at that time, 1603, when he was born.
Wow.
And he was kind of dim-witted, actually, not super smart. His father sold all the furniture. He had a club foot. Like, this guy's not going to make anything. He was a real problem for his family. They tried to send him off to various religious orders, and none of them wanted him because he was a klutz. Every time they hire him, he'd drop everything and just stare off. He had a tendency to be a little spacey.
Right. Clearly. He's flying.
Spacey. I think he's dusting.
Yeah.
That That is phenomenal.
He's got a new job. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was super religious. He just loved the whole idea of God, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And whenever
wow.
he would see a cross or a little lamb or
Mhm.
anything that's remotely religious, he would go into this sort of fit. He called them my fits.
Right.
And he started levitating as a young adult.
Right.
And he ended up levitating some 200 times, 100, 200 times that are documented.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, all across Europe. He became so famous that crowds of people would follow him everywhere. They had to build little sort of houses for people to house the people who came to see him.
That's crazy.
That's how famous. And people came from all over Europe. Very famous, kings and heads of state wanted to see Joseph, the flying friar of Europe. And they did. And he converted a lot of people to Catholicism or whatever it was he was. I forget who he was. Catholic.
It's like that God frequency that lifted him.
Yep, levitated on his deathbed even.
Wow, really? Is he the only one who's ever done that? That's documented?
Nope.
You're kidding. I wonder. Wow.
Right.
A lot of, that does turn up because when someone is at that state, they're starting to dissociate. Their astral body is lifting out.
Yes.
It's connected to astral travel for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, if I could have met this man, and if there's anyone in history I could meet, I'd love to see this guy. And they still got, you can go to his shrine. They've still got his jacket that he wore, and the house he lived in, I think. And you can visit all these people in Italy who allegedly levitated. And when he was canonized, you go through a whole process of beatification and canonization.
Yes.
But witness after witness after witness who saw him do it. It's very well documented. I think it's probably one of the top 5 cases out there of human levitation.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. I think it's great. And you're right. You don't really hear a lot about it with respects to levitation stories. You don't. Like I'm hearing, and I study a lot of ancient history of all sorts, especially in levels of high strangeness. And I have never, this is the first time I've actually really, I'm being versed in human levitation. But I do want to get to this question, Amelia.
Sure, got it. Thank you.
And now I want to ask Preston the same thing.
Jackie asks, could I ask Michelle what she thinks of repetitive levitation dreams?
Well, if you're asking me, I just said it's the first I've really delved into human levitation, but if it's levitation dreams, my first thought, and Preston could correct me on this or give your opinion, I would think maybe astral projection, OBE, that sort of thing. Preston?
Yeah, 100% agree. Levitation happens a lot in the dream state. This is a natural talent, and everything that we can actually do here on Earth really manifests very easily on the astral realms, where we're very much connected to source and who we truly are. So people who are out there and have vivid dream lives are not only levitating, they're teleporting, they're doing telepathy, they're doing telekinesis. All of this stuff is very much a natural human talent. So if you're levitating in your dreams, well, again, this is what Milarepa said. That's how it happened. He levitated all the time in his dreams, and one day, boom, he's like, oh, I'm not dreaming.
Right.
He was actually doing it.
Right. Well, here's a bit of a rebuttal to that. Amelia, can you get this?
Yeah, thank you. Robert says, but the astral and the physical bodies are different.
Yeah. What thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, they are. We have a third dimensional body here. We have an astral body, which is kind of the superior body. But when someone starts doing astral travel a lot, it brings in those energies. I mean, the exact mechanics are not fully understood here on the Western side. The Eastern yogis, they know how to do this fully. There are some people living today who can do this.
Right.
Yeah, in the yoga practice.
Yeah, I'm going to show you the pictures of.
Okay.
He said, I will show you I will pose for photographs 10 times, but never after that.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll get to his pictures in a second, but I got to
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
I've seen that with
Oh.
yogis. I've seen like that online with them.
Yeah, but
It's amazing what they can do with their bodies.
when people reach a certain level of spiritual enlightenment or evolution,
Yes.
they get what's called the quote rainbow body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Wow.
where the astral body is conjoining with the physical body to a degree that they are able to do these natural human talents that appear on the astral planes on the physical plane.
Mm-hmm.
So we see people bilocating and doing
Mhm.
multiplication of food and immunity to fire and invisibility. That turns up.
Invisibility is interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, there was one case of this guy, Saint Bernard Rayulano. He could levitate. He'd been seen doing it many times. And one time they thought there was a fire in his room. And the guys come running in, and there he is, floating, but he's emitting light. He's emitting visible light. There's a good portion, 10% or so of these cases where people are actually emitting light out of their bodies.
That's
And
insane.
there's modern cases. Doretta Johnson, she was having all kinds of poltergeist-like activity around her. She was a super strong physical medium.
Projecting, yeah.
They tested her skin. She had like this really unusual magnetic, gosh, I forget the word for it now, but
Was
I
she
can't think of it.
human?
Oh yeah, but people kept looking at her and like, I think you're glowing. She's like, no, what are you talking about? And after like the fifth time, they could actually see visible light coming off of her body. And not too long ago, I saw a lady, she's like, look, here's a picture of me on the internet. She's like, I'm glowing in this picture. Has anyone ever heard of this? And I wrote back, yes,
Wow.
yes, I have. The human body can emit physical light under certain conditions. Oh, I remember the term galvanic skin response.
Wow.
She had a
Wow.
really weird way of,
just
like
emitting.
a battery almost.
Yeah, again, it's just like a level of frequency.
Yep.
It's amazing. I guess if you hit a certain level of frequency that you can, it's almost like you're just coming outside the physical. The only way I would think,
I don't know, or joining with it in some way.
Yeah.
You can still see these guys, but they start to look a little different. They're glowing.
Right.
I mean, and if
It's cool if they could do that and to the physical, like it's just I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get I'm just yattering because I'm just trying to get my head around it all. I talk myself through things that I'm trying to understand. So
if you've ever met someone who's super spiritually advanced, like a yogi or just some priests, I mean, some people are just naturally radiant almost, and just walking grace. And you can see their auras. I mean, they are connected. And if you talk to them, they have all these abilities. They don't advertise it.
Yeah. No kidding. Fascinating.
Oh.
I'd like to talk about real quick.
Okay, yes.
One of the top 10 levitators in all of history, Saint Teresa of Avila, who was just a normal lady who decided to join the convent later in life. And she's like 30 or 40 years old when she suddenly became like very serious about it and would chastise people who were in there just gossiping and yammering. She's like, if you're going to be a nun, you got to do the vows. And she was strict about it. She actually wrote her diaries. She left a very vivid, written account of what happened to her. And she was describing all these out-of-body experiences. And then she began levitating, and she hated it because it caused all kinds of attention, and she didn't want that. But suddenly,
no, not if you're devout.
Right. She'd be praying in church, and up she would go. And they could not pull her down. They could not pull her down. That's true in a lot of these cases. They tried that with St. Joseph. They'd hang on to him, and sometimes people would go right up with him. So, sometimes people get caught in that field that is surrounding a person, and up they go. We see that in mediumistic levitations as well.
Like hitchhiking. Yeah, I love it.
So she's got like 7 really well-recorded cases, and that became a big factor in why she was canonized. Of course, there's many different factors. You have to have heroic patience, good deeds, and all kinds of things that make you a saint.
Right. That's fantastic. I'm just like, wow.
Oh
Most of
wow.
these cases are not being recorded. The vast majority do not get recorded.
It's funny because when you Google, it says what famous person came from Avila, Spain, and the first person is Teresa.
Yeah, that would be another person.
1515.
I read her book. It's like, wow, here's a person describing it in such detail. It is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
She could do it. And man, oh man, I would just love to meet some of these people.
Is this the same person? Amelia, can you get this?
Yes. Chris. Hi, Chris. I didn't see you there. Didn't she also bilocate, or am I confusing her with another saint?
I don't know that she bilocated, but there were a number of saints that could. And
Right.
I'm going to bring up one of those guys. I'm glad you brought that up.
All right. There you go. Thanks,
Even
Chris.
my lineup of pictures. I have
Right.
like 30 pictures. I'm like, Michelle, I got a lot of pictures. I'm only going to do this.
Let's get started then. That's what I said. Right. Take charge, Preston. Take charge.
She was definitely really advanced, St. Teresa. I don't think she was the one who actually bilocated. I might be wrong about that because I know there were some. But here is probably my favorite saint of all of them. I read Butler's Lives of the Saints, which was this giant multi-volume, double-sided with itty-bitty writing, and it's about 3,000 pages.
That's a lot. You have to be invested. I'm teasing. That's a lot.
It was.
Yeah.
It really was. But this guy, St. Gerard of Magella, was so good at the things. He did everything. He would multiply food. He could heal people. There was a ship that was foundering offshore, and he came running up and floated up to it, grabbed the darn ship, and pulled it to shore. And people were surrounding, like, how did you do that? How the heck did you do that? Right. He said, when I'm in this state, anything is possible.
Wow.
So we have the strength too.
Yeah. He was another guy who people followed around.
Oh, he probably thought it was a gift from God, right? To feed the masses. And they have him in this sketch surrounded by light.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first one that you see that with that orb light. Yes. Hi, Adrian. Question: what bodily sensation do these levitators describe? Is there a common denominator?
That's a great question.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Dolly about it. She says, really, you're in a state of pure joy. And that's when it happened to her. And that does come up. Mm-hmm. Some people who actually have left written records of this say that they feel a sense of energy pulsing through them. And if you've ever had an out-of-body experience, there's something called the vibratory state, where you're just going, and I think that's probably what they're describing. Mm-hmm. Some feel like they say their body becomes rigid, and you can see that in a lot of these cases, their eyes kind of roll back a little bit. They're aware of their surroundings. It's not painful. There's a few cases where sound is produced, knockings and weird sounds. There's another phenomenon, the odor of sanctity, it's called. Some of these saints would give off the scent of roses or pine, or just, you're not allowed to wear perfume when you're in these orders. You're not.
Right.
So they had it, and it was very well documented. And that was another clue that people were like, wow, look at this person.
I think that's why they make the rosaries for the popes when they've passed and when they come in out of rose petals. There's got to be something with that. It's olive wood and rose petals. Priest going out, pope going out, new pope coming in.
Yep. All right, I'm going to bring up another. Did you need to take a station break at some point?
Yeah, we could do it. We usually do it a little bit later. We'll give it another 10. We'll give it another 10. All right.
Okay, I just don't want to make sure that I'm talking over it.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
No.
We're well trained. You've been at this a while. Joe's got us well trained.
This guy is the most famous levitator in the world. The best documented, hands down, Daniel Douglas. Well, he says he pronounces his name Hume, but it's spelled home. which
Right.
always confused me. So I always called him Daniel Home, but apparently it's pronounced Hume. But neither here nor there. But as a young boy in New England, the United States, he started displaying mediumistic abilities. As a little kid in bed, objects would fly around his room, and then he started hearing spirits, having full color apparitions. He started displaying all of these abilities that we hear about. And as a young teenager, he was holding readings, and he started levitating while he was talking to the spirits. And the first time it happened, the lady he's reading says, Mr. Home, do you realize your chair is floating like 3 inches off the ground? And he did not realize it.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, he became super famous all across the world. He was visited by Mark Twain, scientists, kings, heads of state. He traveled all across the US and Europe, showing this ability to scientists as well. Nobel Prize winners, and I mean, they could not figure it out. Sir William Crookes, who invented, I think it was the blowtorch or something, really got involved in his case and could not disprove it. He was never found doing any trickery. He often could only levitate in near darkness. But there were, which does turn up, especially in these mediumistic levitations. But he says that the spirits are lifting me. That's who's doing it.
Well, there's a lot of spiritualists who have encountered the same things, and table tipping, and sometimes they're sitting in chairs and the chairs just start walking around, and sometimes they'll levitate. I mean, that was really big in the 1800s and the onset of age of spiritualism, which, I'm sure you've come across some of that in your research also. So it is super interesting.
The rise of spiritualism.
Again, spirituality, right?
Yeah. Here's another case, which I just love this one so much. I really do. It's a modern case. This was like in the 1970s, and this was became famous because there was these airline pilots who saw this monk. This is the highest recorded case of levitation. They saw this monk floating among the clouds. This is many thousands of feet in the sky. And after several airline pilots saw this guy, they became curious. And one guy is like, you know what, I'm going to see if I can find him. And he did. And it turned out that this guy, his name is Llewellyn Payne. I mean, I'm butchering his name. Long Gu Payne or something like that. P-A-E-N. I don't know how to pronounce that. But they found him in a monastery. I think it was in India. He just kind of smiled. He's like, yeah, that's me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to distract you. But after that, he became super well known and shunned all publicity and had to sort of go into hiding because he became so well known. And he was the highest recorded case of levitation that I could find. Modern case. And there's quite a few of these modern cases. It's crazy to think of how well documented this stuff is. People have no idea just how many cases there are of this.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Quick question here, Amelia.
Yep, got it. I'm looking I look first to the side to see if I could see it in bigger print before I go to the smaller one. Adrian, hi Adrian, says, were any levitations tired for sorry?
Levitators.
Oh, levitators, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Tried for witchcraft, or was it always deemed religious? I need to go find it on the other side next time. Okay.
Yeah, so were any levitators tried for witchcraft, or was it always deemed religious?
No, they were.
There's a picture for that.
Yeah, they were.
I just made it bigger. Okay.
Okay.
Wow, that's a pretty picture, though.
Amazing. Yeah, my sister-in-law did that for the book.
Oh, it's so pretty.
There is a category of, this came up during the whole Salem witch trials. There were people who were burned at the stake for levitating. And some of these cases, these witches had an ointment that they could apply to their body, which they said aided them in the process of levitation. And that turns out in a number of these cases. There's some talk that, oh, these were hallucinogenics and they were just having out-of-body experiences. I don't think so, because some people saw this. They saw it happen. They saw this one lady fly right out the window and up into the heavens. Did a big, long search for her, found her, and yeah.
It reminds me, again, getting back to these videos that you see on some of these popular programs. Have you seen The Witch? And then there's the one, just there's a woman on a broom. And honest to God, it's a typical looking
right over the mountains.
You see them going? It's a darn broomstick.
Yeah.
And there's this woman on it. And they have others where it's just like a humanoid just going.
Yeah. They're easy to find. They're the most commonly viewed ones, is the one Michelle talked about first, that looks like a witch on a broomstick, and they can't explain it.
No. So I'm starting to think maybe you have to go on YouTube and look at it. Just go the flying modern day flying witch. Seriously, like I've seen it twice. One was just 20 minutes from here.
Wow.
Right? That's what I said. Yeah. So here's another question pertaining.
Yeah. Well, I changed screens now so I can read this. Okay. Hi, Doxy. At present, have you documented if UFO contactees are religious versus spiritual or atheist?
I have, and they are all of it. But what often does happen with contactees is it doesn't fit into a traditional religious paradigm, and people who are super religious will tend to abandon the religion or adapt it and become more what they term spiritual. But yeah, atheists absolutely are contactees for sure. But at some point, I think people who start to have all these experiences realize there is source. There is, everyone has their own interpretation of what God is.
Right.
And Dolly talked a lot about that in the book Symmetry, about how the ETs interpreted as the all mind.
Right.
And the Native Americans called it the spirit which moves through all things.
Right.
And that's kind of how I always looked at it. The universe itself is God, and we're a part of it. And how cool is that?
Right.
But definitely contactees are spiritual more than anything else, more than religious, more than atheist, because they wake up to a whole, all these abilities are happening. They have to start to really adjust their worldview.
Right. Why don't we just do a quick station ID now? But before you start, Amelia, I'm going to play a little treat for everybody, since we are also on Preston's YouTube. We're sponsored by Folgers. Amelia will get into that, but here's a little treat. So tell me if you can figure out who's singing this little ditty.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
All right, there we go, Miss Dolly Saffron. There we are.
I love that one.
I know. All right, Amelia, go.
Okay, let me get back because I had enlarged the screen. I'm learning how to finally use a screen after 3 years. It's amazing.
Nice.
Right? Thought I could never enlarge anything. But anyways, pardon the crack in my voice. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 and 107.7 FM radio. We are also live and archived on Roku and about 250 platforms as well. Our guest tonight is our dear friend and returning special guest, because we love him, Preston Dennett, and we're discussing, we love that new book alert. We should have a sound effect for that, right? Like new book. Preston Dennett is here with his new book, Human Levitation, A True History, and a how-to guide. And it has been eye-opening, let me tell you. But if you're just tuning in, don't worry. Like I said earlier, you can stream our archives on any platform you normally use simply by searching. And with that, that little search icon there that looks like a magnifying glass, type in United Public Radio, and you will find us anywhere. Don't forget to share us with your friends when you do. A huge thank you to the amazing people at Folgers Coffee for sponsoring our show and continuing to sponsor our show. We heard that not too long ago. We love you. We thank you for that so much. Your support is everything to us, and we couldn't be here without you. Shout out and thank you for our intro and outro to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon. Justin Snicker is an award-winning composer and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp, and check him out on Facebook and Instagram. He's often sharing clips of his music, so you can get a preview before you buy, or you can just keep adding to your list. So now, the best part. Are you watching us on Facebook? Are you watching us on YouTube? Don't forget to give us a like, hit subscribe, and share. Back to you, Michelle.
I feel like I'm in a newscast. Maybe you should be calling me Bob or something along those lines. I don't even know.
Back to you, Shelley, and I'll get a smack
I
on the
know.
other side.
I was like, what?
You don't call me Shelley.
Oh my gosh. All right. And don't forget to check out Preston and Dolly on their show, The Light Gate, on Mondays, which is 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. Pacific time. Did I get that right? Okay. Woohoo. All right. So check them out, and you're going to learn even more when you have Preston in front of you for 2 straight hours, and Dolly's a wealth of information. So, and by the way, July 5th, Dolly's going to be in the hot seat right where Preston is. So mark your calendars. There we go. All right. Next
Be
picture.
sure to ask her about her levitation, because she did
Yes,
it.
right.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Get your questions ready, people.
Okay, so here's the next guy I want to feature. His name is Dushan Gursey, and he is an explorer. He actually is pretty well known. He's written a number of books.
I was going to ask you, that name sounds very familiar. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries. And I was really impressed because he went to Haiti and he saw people levitating right in front of him over and over again. They'd fall into this trance, and they said, "We're calling on the spirits. We have the ability to do this." And so he whips out his camera, right? I'm going to record this. And would take photo after photo after photo. Not one darn photo would ever come out when these guys got into a levitation state. And it would always drain the battery of his camera. And he had more batteries ready, put them in, and he learned that there is some sort of field, a bioelectric field surrounding these guys when they levitate. His hair would stand on end. He could feel it. And he tried so hard to get photographs, but just was never able to do it. Because the photographs would either come out pitch black, or the camera would just go dead, completely dead.
Why do you think that happened? Was it the emanating life from his body, the frequencies draining or taking them out?
Yeah, that was his theory.
Okay.
But he talked to some of these guys, and he was the one who learned that there's a group of these guys who are very spiritually advanced and can teleport, and they're called the Flying Men. They're fairly well known in this community, and these are what we would call primitive culture. I'm not so sure that that's an accurate term.
Sure. Wow.
Because they're doing things we can't do, right?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Who's primitive?
He also noticed something really interesting, because he went to Africa and interviewed sorcerers and stuff like this. And I mean, he went to culture after culture after culture. And he talked to these people that they called cassowary men. And these were people who could levitate and teleport. And a cassowary is a very large bird with a big feathery tail.
Right.
And he watched them do it. And they would suddenly disappear. And all you would see was this sort of strings behind them. And he thought, gosh, you know what this looks like? This looks like the same thing that, like, witches on brooms, or how he put it, is flying carpets. He says it looked like they were taking off on a flying carpet.
Right. Right.
And they were called cassowary men because of that weird effect of where the strings are trailing behind them.
Right.
And so he's speculating that various cultures are adding these cultural items that they're familiar with, like a carpet or a broom. When they're not using a broom to fly, it's just an optical effect.
They
That's
use
right.
they use their carpets to pray, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a pretty interesting observation.
Absolutely, because you see that everywhere. I mean, you even see that in film with the carpets and the brooms and those associations. So
Right.
I like that. Nice to have a different perspective behind it. It's not just Aladdin on a rug.
We're looking for Jasmine.
I know. I'm looking for Jeannie. Where are you?
Yeah.
Robin Williams.
I did find many modern cases, and one that really kind of struck me was that of Robert Monroe, who is very well known for going out of body. Right? He's written his books taught me how to do it, hands down. They're the best books out there on this subject. And boy, was I thrilled to read this account where he is walking down. Well, I shouldn't say thrilled because he actually nearly killed himself.
That's not good.
He was going down the steps that were icy, and he slipped. And he says he just kind of fell down like a feather. Boom. And I thought, well, I know what's going on here. That's a crisis levitation. And when someone's almost jerked out of their body, he coincided with his astral body is what I think happened, and floated down, just levitated down. Because that happens in a number of astral travelers, and it happened again to him. He was walking down the steps and stepped on a shoelace that was untied, went head first down the steps and landed lightly as a feather. So that's when I started to really look into the mechanics and how do you do this? And one of the how-tos is learning how to physically go out of body. I guess that's a little bit of an oxymoron there.
Yeah, that's a little bit. Yeah.
I have a bit of a question for you.
Going out of body is connected to this. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Because there's case after case of astral travelers who can do this. And I'm going to show you some photographs here in a second, but I want to show another lady that I interviewed personally. And I called her up. I'm like, "You says you levitated in your book. Do you mind if I interview you? Can I put you in my book that I'm writing on this case?" And she said, "Yeah, absolutely." And her name is Marilyn Hughes. I'm pulling up her picture now. Give me a second.
Okay.
I interviewed her, and she said that it happened to her twice at least, and she is a very pronounced astral traveler. Why isn't this coming up? Hold on a second. There it is. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. And she wrote some of my favorite books on this: Crystal River Flowing, Odysseys of Light. And now she's got like 20, 30, 40 books. She's got a great website. She's one of the leading practitioners on this. And she levitated twice. That she's willing to talk about publicly, at least since I last talked to her.
Right.
What an amazing lady.
So basically, again, a couple of different experiences. What is it that why can't, once you do it, or especially when you do it a couple of times, what hinders you from being able to keep going? Maybe aside from the fact you just don't really know, you just do it and that's it without thought.
Yeah, well, I think it's all the things that are going on. I was talking to Dolly about that, and gosh, I can't completely remember what she said, but it's linked to karma and all the strife that we are here going through on our planet, because it's hard to be in a state of pure joy.
Yeah.
And you have, doing astral travel, it requires incredible focus.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's connected to that. But
I can see that.
The guys in the Eastern cultures do attain it through a process called pranayama, which is controlled breathing. And don't quote me on the exact mechanics of this. It's in the book. But you inhale for a certain number of seconds, you retain your breath for, I think, half that amount, and you exhale for, I forget what the proportions are, but there's a very timed inhalations, retention, and exhalation. And this is called pranayama. And they say, don't do this without a teacher, because breathing exercises can be very effective.
Well, in meditation as well. So it just sounds like it's going a step further.
And they have all kinds of weird things. You breathe in one nostril and exhale out of the other. And
maybe.
I mean, seriously, they've got all these really curious breathing exercises.
Okay, anybody tries this at home? We want to know the results.
Funny, when I had this
Preston.
If you're learning how to get to Bahamas, pick me up.
Send the notes to Preston Dennett.
When I published this book, they put in a disclaimer. I'm like, what? And they're like, well, this could be dangerous. I'm like, well,
you're not wrong.
All right. So they put in a disclaimer in the book.
Yeah.
Do this at your own risk, which I guess is wise. But yeah, this is, if you do true yoga, there's a lot of yoga out there that's not
I've
fully
done yoga. Yeah. Some of it's
goat yoga, or
I haven't done goat yoga.
Have you heard of this?
No.
Looking all over you. It's a thing. Goat yoga.
No, that's insane. I did yoga with a lovely older woman who trained for years in India. So it was a really old form of it, and it was just safe and slow. Would have needed a disclaimer, unlike doing yoga with goats. So
oh my God.
The goat could pop into the next dimension. Bam, gone. So,
but yeah, I mean, it's Patanjali, who was the first slide I showed. He had it all outlined. And how to do levitation was basically very simple. You just meditate on a piece of cotton and feeling as light as air. It's just one little line.
Right.
That's all they give you. And if you want superhuman strength, you meditate on the strength of an elephant. That's all they will tell you. And by the way, Daniel Hume, who I featured, he displayed superhuman strength a couple of times. He lifted up this enormous tree log and pushed it aside. And he said he was in that state, that he could do it.
Well, you hear the stories of that, like people lifting up cars, or heavy objects to save someone's life, like if a car falls on top of someone who's working under it, they're able to lift it up, or car accident, same idea. So it goes to show you that state of mind, like where your will is just so strong.
Yeah, I wrote an article once for Fate magazine called "The Farmer with Superhuman Strength," because I found this account of a farmer who just had that ability. He could do it. And
right.
So these, I can't stress that enough. This is not supernatural or paranormal.
No, I think that's a real common one. You just read about that so much, so much more so than levitation and invisibility, which to me are both very equally fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I just found another case of a girl who lifted a tractor off of her dad. This was just happened, maybe not this year, but a year or two ago. But here is a photograph of a levitation. You can't see it super well because of the ticker tape here is covering the floor, but she's actually levitating a few feet off the ground there. And her name is Raja Lakshmi. She, as far as I know, is still alive in India. She teaches a girls' school.
Wow.
Her case was uncovered by Doug Boyd, who is a researcher, and went and met her. And he was really impressed because, she wore jewelry. She drove a fancy car. She was really beautiful.
Wow.
She was this yogi. She taught all these spiritual disciplines. And she says, sure, I will levitate for you in front of the camera, and did it. And this is the picture.
Wow.
Her in a state of levitation. It's not the best one out there by any means. It's one of the worst in terms of photographic evidence. But it's a really, really well authenticated case because she did it numerous times in front of people. A lot of the levitators won't do it. Back in the day in India, there was a group of people who could levitate, and they would do it publicly. They said, this is to, what do they say, celebrate the glory of God. And they would all get together and they do their breathing meditations and purifications, and boom, they go up.
Right.
This is not stick levitation. This is not the fake yogis who put on a robe and there's a little platform that they sit on.
Yes.
It's a very clever method of stick levitation. It's not mass hypnosis, which some cases point towards that.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
So I love this case because it's a modern case, and
Yeah.
there aren't a lot of female yogis out there, or at least they're.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, it was gracious of her to do it on demand. You know, I wonder if people get stage fright and they can't necessarily do it on demand. Well, I won't do it in front of a camera because, I mean, you add the pressure, it takes away from that freedom to just being able to do it.
Yeah, that happened with Daniel Douglas Hume.
Right. Right.
He said, if you even stare at me too hard, it disrupts the field,
Right.
and down he goes. He's
Yeah.
like, just look away, don't just wait till I actually get up there.
Right. That'd be tough. I'd have that. Nope. Unless you're a showman and a show off, you know.
But here, I want to show you some of the best photos out there, man. These are amazing. Give me a second to pull them up because this is another guy still living, as near as I know. He just put out a new video not too long ago. He's got videos on YouTube. And he agreed to allow himself to be photographed levitating. But after doing it like 10 times, he's like, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. It's not useful. People just keep asking for more and more proofs. And I'm not going to do that.
Wow.
But his name is Yogi.
Wow.
Narus.
Oh my.
That's compelling.
I had to look back to see. I thought he'd lost his leg. He's got his legs crossed.
Yeah, and you can look him up on YouTube, Yogi Narus, and he gives lessons on how to become spiritually enlightened. When he was just a little kid, he was really into spirituality, started visiting all the enlightened masters. And before he was, an adult, he was still a teenager when he says he attained all the SIDS, all the major supernatural powers. Became a teacher of this kind of thing. So yeah, he can absolutely do this.
Yeah. Of course, your naysayers would be CGI. So, go check out his YouTube.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's other pictures of him doing this, and they are even more impressive, as I will show you. Because here's another picture.
Wow.
And you can see the cameraman in the mirror. You can see him in the mirror. There's no ropes, and he did this over and over again in front of people.
Fascinating.
Allowed himself. He says it's important that people know that this is an ability that anyone can do.
I like to see it from, the photographer seeing everything in the mirror. You can sort of see underneath also. It's interesting.
Look at his hair is kind of floating up too.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I know. That's true.
I think it's kind of interesting. But he said it's easy. And he says, all you have to do if you want to do this is fixate your attention on a point above your body, go out of body up to that point, remain there, and your physical body will follow. I think he's simple. I mean, he can probably do it so easy. He's like, it's easy. This is all you have to do.
I know. Not so easy. No.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, easier said than done, perhaps.
I was just about to say that. Exactly. Yeah, not so
amazing
easy.
There's some really good photographic evidence of it. Here, that one's kind of a fuzzy picture, but I'll pull it up anyway.
Yeah.
It's not super high resolution, I guess would be the word. That
right.
I love Chantal.
I find it extremely interesting when people can just keep doing it at will.
Yeah,
I'm
so
a visual learner, so I love this.
And again, see the ponytail is just up in the air.
Yeah. And after doing this 10 times, like, I'm not doing it anymore. And this is something that a lot of spiritual practitioners will say. They're like, okay, because everyone always wants more and more proof. And if you weren't there when it was happening, then you don't believe it.
Right.
But,
I think
it's incredible.
If somebody doesn't believe, they don't believe any amount of evidence or anything remotely close is never, you can't please everyone. Not everybody's just going to bite. But I think for those who are open-minded, you can look at something like this because it is something that has been happening for centuries, and anyone can do it. And to see it, I think video, we're in the age of video. And I think that's pretty much what, even at that point now, we're also in the age of AI. So even that would be questioned. So you see, you can't please everyone, no matter what.
No.
I think you'll have your naysayers in just about every aspect. Look how casual he looks there. Hand on his hip. Yeah.
It's Tuesday. It's just Tuesday.
Yeah, like that lady who was, an inch off the ground. Well, you could probably leap up that high from a cross-legged position, but I don't think you can leap up 3 feet.
No. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, Doxy says he's going to try it tonight.
I want to see the photos proving invisibilization there.
I'll have my
Visibility.
CCTV on. Okay.
There's another guy right there. You just can't see him.
See, there's 10 of them.
Oh no, exactly. But I do agree with Roger on this, Amelia. Can you get that?
Yes. Robert Allen Jeffy, hello, says the age of CGI makes it questionable.
That's exactly. Yeah. That's the problem. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to have your naysayers, and technology, which should be taking us in leaps and bounds, is also, hindering. I mean, you don't want to be full on about everything, but being skeptical is okay. By the way, Chris, it's just nowadays you have to question everything, unfortunately, because we're in the age where technology is working against us with certain things. And I love Dolores Cannon. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because levitation has been proven in a scientific laboratory setting on at least 5 occasions that I know of. And one of the best experiments were done by Hereward Carrington, a paranormal researcher who was looking into this and did that, that game, stiff as a board, light as a feather, finger levitation.
Yes.
That sort of thing. So what he did was really ingenious. He got a table, or no, wait, let me get this right. He got a chair and put it on a very large scale and 5 people. And he sat one person on the chair and got the 4 people to sit around him. And they all did rhythmic breathing, in and out, in and out, in and out, 20, 30 times, and then stuck their fingers underneath the guy and lifted him up with their fingers. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening have done this, because we used to do this as kids. And a number of people contacted me like, yeah, I lifted right up.
Right.
He did this on a scale, and it was extraordinary. I'd love to see this repeated as a scientific experiment. Because each time he did it, he recorded it. The first time it was a loss of about 46 pounds. The second, it was a loss of 42, then 47, 46. It was always thereabout. I might be getting the numbers slightly off, but it was around that. And it kept falling into those same parameters over and over and over again. He did this, proved it in a controlled setting in front of other people in a scientific lab. And this is one of many experiments like this, particularly with mediums. Actually, they really worked closely with a lot of mediums who proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is, in fact, a real phenomena.
Amelia, can you get this one?
Yes, thank you. Jackie says he levitated objects in a box as well, didn't he? So not just his body?
He may have. I am not sure. I would have to look into that.
Because, makes it a bit more interesting, because now you're levitating objects, not just yourself.
But you're using that energy to lift.
Some French researchers who would magnetize or electrify objects, and were able to do that. And there's that guy, I forget what it's called, the Hutchinson effect.
Right. Okay.
Where he's floating objects around. I don't know if you've seen that on the internet, but apparently that's legit.
Wow.
Doing all kinds of.
I've never heard of that. Yeah. The whole levitation thing is very new for me. So this is all very fascinating.
But I love the fact that this has been proven in a laboratory setting, and I want to bring up another slide here, because this lady is super well known. Eusapia Palladino was probably Europe's most famous medium, and she could produce all these amazing effects.
What's with all these Italians?
Looks very stern.
Yeah, they look that way at those days. They were our neighborhood watch, women like her. But I mean, like, there's so many of them. I've got to wonder if there's something. I don't know, like some kind of secret society or something that we're missing that they were practicing.
I don't know, but she was a medium from a very young age and was producing all these phenomena and became very well known and subjected herself to scientific scrutiny and convinced scientist after scientist after scientist that she was legit.
Yeah.
I was able to physically levitate on a number of occasions and proved it in front of people. So people say there's no evidence. I'm like, well, hold on a second. You weren't there perhaps, but scientists have done this many, many times.
Wow.
She took a huge risk doing that.
Yeah.
Like there, Spain, Portugal, France, I think were a little bit more open-minded, but these other countries were, you took a huge risk of not being stoned to death up against a wall.
Well, here's another guy who did it. Sven Turk did table lifting and all this stuff, and they tried to produce mediumship. And over and over again, they would get one of the sitters to just go flying up. And this was usually only produced in darkness or near darkness. They used a flash camera. The guy would say, I'm up, I'm in the air, and boom. And these are probably not the best experiments that have been done, but they're certainly intriguing.
It just goes back to the spiritualist thing, right? Again, the mindset, table tipping, chairs going. Yep. I find that whole part of the movement was just really interesting.
Yeah. Now there was a guy who was Brazil's most famous medium. His name is Carmine Mirabelli. Let's see if I can find him here. But I have his picture here somewhere. Give me a second. But at any rate, he could speak like 20 some languages when under a trance. He became Brazil's most famous medium. He could produce apparitions. Oh, here he is. And all forms of supernatural phenomena, which were witnessed by his whole family, and he became super well known. So he subjected himself to scientific study. And all the best scientists in Brazil invited him to subject himself to studies, and they chained him up. They tried to do.
Sorry. Was that your end?
Oh yeah, because I won't let him up. Sorry, I'll mute.
Let me pull up Carmine Mirabelli. There he is. And so he allowed himself to be handcuffed and chained up, and he's still levitated in full view of about 12 scientists. Wow. And then he moved right through the wall into the other room.
Come on. For real?
For real.
Through the wall?
Through the wall.
I thought only aliens could do that to you. That's fascinating. Wow.
In other cases.
Wow. So he just completely mastered like the whole physical, almost like the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah, no way. He was great full-on apparitions. He'd sit there, go into a trance, and apparitions would appear.
Wow. That I can see.
Over and over again. So, I mean, it's amazing what some of these people could do.
Yeah, that's just mind-blowing. That's really fascinating. I'm very fascinated tonight. I keep saying interesting, fascinating. It's like I'm sitting in a classroom.
I only have 3 words. I have wow, what, wait, what, wait, or 1 word.
Wow.
And oh my God. It's like getting out of me. And now I have a million more questions.
All right. Well, if there are any questions, I've got another slide ready.
Go for it.
No, I'm waiting for, do your thing.
Okay. Because someone mentioned bilocation, and Padre Pio was well known for that. He never left his, church there in, I think it was Spain.
No,
but he was seen all over the world.
He was in San Giovanni di Rotondo in Italy. That's down by the Molise section. I have been studying him and praying to him since the day my daughter was born.
Yeah, he's been seen levitating on numerous occasions.
That's what
He
I
brought
asked you.
someone-
I wonder if he levitated in the beginning of the show because he had the full stigmata.
Yeah, he had the stigmata. He levitated
Hit
in
him.
front of people on a number of occasions. He brought someone back to life.
Yes.
Actually resurrected them. He
Yeah.
went to a orchard that wasn't producing fruit, and he said they will
Yes.
produce fruit tomorrow, and they did.
Yes.
And the stuff this guy could do was off
Yeah.
the charts.
They
He
made
only-
him a saint.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
They canonized him. That's right.
He only
Yes.
spoke Italian, but he could understand you no matter what language you spoke.
Yes.
And people would
And the
understand
Vatican
him.
wasn't impressed with that.
I mean, this guy was, not that long ago.
No.
I was 3 years old
1968.
when he passed away. But
Yeah, 1968.
1968, he passed away. It was in my mother's lifetime. So my mom, my aunts, and my uncle, who was a deacon at Il Duomo Cathedral in Milan, I learned everything about them, about him through them. He was someone that was constant in our house. And I have his personal diary. You should read his book, Man of Hope. It's his personal letters.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I started reading about him, I thought, he levitated, but I'm like, let's dig a little deeper. There's nothing that guy didn't do. Oh my
Right.
God.
No.
It's a
No.
true miracle. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
People would come
Absolutely.
from everywhere so that he could cure them at church. But it's not a church thing. He had the full stigmata, and no one had that since I can't remember how long before him. And they didn't
Yeah.
believe him. And they would send doctors and have him taped up and try to heal. And he would say the mass with the blood just dripping. He was losing like 8 pints or something like that a day of blood. I thought that's all we had in our system.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you imagine?
Yeah. And it would just come back. He would heal people. I remember there was a man in Portugal whose son was dying with his kidneys and liver. And they called him over, and he happened to be doing like one of those homages, like across those faithful homages that they do across Europe. And he went into the home and he touched them and he cured him.
Amazing. Yeah. He was seen all over the world. People
Yes.
saw him.
Yeah.
He wasn't physically, he could bilocate, so he could actually take his physical body or a duplicate of it. Robert Monroe talked about
Crazy.
that
That's
after he died, he
crazy.
says you can go to different places.
Yeah.
So this is that's a really advanced form of this.
Do you want to
You
hear
can do it.
something really cool? He was the first saint that Lorraine Warren saw in the Amityville house. She said he manifested himself to her when she first walked in the doors.
Oh wow.
Some food for thought. Caught that in an interview, and I was really shocked.
He was her patron saint.
Yeah, me too.
All right, next picture.
This is Janet Hodgson, and she was one of the focuses of a nasty poltergeist haunting in Enfield, England. Guy Lyon Playfair wrote this book called "This House is Haunted."
Yeah.
A very well documented case of a poltergeist, and it focused on her. And in her case, a lot of poltergeist is uncontrolled mediumship.
Right.
And I think that's what,
Psychokinesis and yeah,
that's
fascinating.
so it was surrounding her, and there were voices and scared the daylights out of several neighbors when they'd look through the window and they'd see her floating around the room with all these objects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Oh, yeah.
so they set up motion cameras because she kept doing it, and they're like, oh, well, we're not sure. And sure enough, they caught 4 or 5 photos. Some look like she's jumping out of the bed, honestly. But the people who were there said, no, she's not. She's just suddenly, and she's floating up there in the middle of the room, and she's screaming. And her sister, you can see her sisters, they kind of put a little rectangle over her face. But
Yes.
her mother saw it, and she went through the wall. On one occasion, she went right through the wall.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. Another one.
So that's another example of,
That's one of the biggest poltergeist cases.
it's very well known.
Yeah.
It's a very well documented haunting.
Mm-hmm.
But
All right.
again, shows all the things that we can do. And ETs are doing this. Dolly talks about this. She's like, a lot of what they're doing, people think is technology. It's not. This is psychically
natural ability. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign of the times. It's the times that we live in, and this is, I think, stuff that's just being endured.
Yep.
Any way you look at it.
It's funny because if you ask people in Enfield if they believed it, they would say no. But if you asked anyone who lived on the street, they would say without a doubt. Because I wonder if they had these stuff floating through their townhomes, right?
Yeah, well, the police who went there, they believed it because they saw
it happened in front of them.
And all the researchers who went there, and there's recordings of her, the voice talking through her. It's this gravelly male voice. It's very creepy.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorite hauntings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here is another guy who became very well known for his predictions and influencing weather, and they call him the PK man, Ted Owens. There's
Holy cow.
a biography on by Jeffrey Mishlove, who just won that $1 million contest about an essay about near-death experiences, I think it was. Got a huge $1 million prize or something.
Wow.
So he wrote this book on Ted Owens and came away convinced. And Ted Owens levitated twice, he says. Once when he was diving off a diving board into a pool and got stuck up in the air and floated over the pool for a good minute or two and then crashed down in.
Oh, it's a good thing he was just a pool.
Yeah, right.
Was it full of water? Because it could have been worse. It could have been, pre-season and you're landing in concrete.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was witnessed by the neighborhood kid who's like, how did you do that? How did you get stuck up in the air? And he's like, I don't know. It just happened. He started developing all these abilities. Was tested by, I think, Ryan, the famous ESP guy.
Right.
Ended up joining the Navy at one point and had a spontaneous levitation on the deck of the Navy ship that was witnessed by some 20 or 30 officers.
Sure, that went over well.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
He's passed away, but it's another modern day case. A lot of these levitations are viewed by outside witnesses. So I think the ones we don't hear about, and the religious people, the nuns and the monks, wouldn't talk about it. This was considered taboo to talk about yourself in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't hear about the vast majority of these, but there are ones that are witnessed by thousands of people. Buddha, a lot of people saw Buddha levitating.
Yes. Yes.
Jesus, all kinds of.
I think you get more of that in ancient times because they were more open about things like that. Let's face it. I think a lot of us, and I'm probably aging a few of us here tonight, but how many people in the last, few decades grew up hearing from their parents, we don't talk about things like that. You don't want the neighbors to think we're crazy. Like, how much information never left the four walls of the family home because they were told, no, we don't talk about things like that. It's a family secret. I grew up like that, and yet my parents are pretty open-minded. Doesn't mean they want the neighbors to know, So I don't know, but that's anything going back to ancient times is more acceptable.
Yeah, but what I love about levitation is it's far better verified than people have any idea. And let me bring up this guy because he lost his job over focusing on levitation. Let's see, do I have him? Here he is. Baron Schrenk von Natzing. He was a famous guy, rich, and decided that he would start devoting his attention to mediumship because he met this medium, Willie and Rudy Schneider, who were able to levitate. And they could do it only in near darkness. So he pinned little phosphorescent pins to their clothes. And over and over again, he did it 20 or 30 times. These kids would just rise right up to the ceiling.
Wow.
And he convinced an awful lot of people that this was real. And here I'll bring up a slide of a picture of the medium himself. If I can.
I know. You almost need to have two computers on the go so you can just keep going. Unfortunately, it only lets you do one at a time unless you put it in a slideshow.
Yeah. Well, I tried to get this all set up, but I have so many darn pictures that I know.
I know. Your email arrived literally like 5 minutes before I got on the board. I'm like, okay, well, thank God Preston's doing it.
Yeah.
I'll be scrolling
I
down.
got so many pictures. There's no way. But this is Willie Schneider. So he's the medium who could do this. He and his brother.
Mhm.
But it all left. They could no longer do it once they hit puberty. It was
Right.
done.
Right. Wow. Funny, right there.
It's funny because he looks like a snake oil salesman.
Well, there were a lot of charlatans doing mediumship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not saying if
Houdini
he
went around.
didn't experience, I'm just saying, wow, he just,
Well, Harry Houdini spent a lot of time trying to debunk everybody.
He looked like a snake oil salesman too. They all did from the Victorian times, though.
Mm.
Yeah. Houdini caught a lot of them and said, "You're busted. You're not really doing this." But
I know. He made it his life's mission after a while.
I think it was Daniel Douglas Home. It was either him or Harry Keller, another guy who was a debunker. Could not bust Hume or Daniel Home. He was for sure legitimate.
Right.
So this is still occurring today.
Frozen.
Okay, so it's not just me.
Nope. Come back to us, Preston. Come back to us. Come back.
Well, at least you froze on a good smile.
Yeah.
It's okay. That what you froze on was a really nice smile, so you're good.
So I was talking to this lady firsthand. She's like, "Yeah, I meditated, and suddenly I opened my eyes and I went bunk, and I fell down like 4 inches to the ground."
Right.
Oh. I was going to this astral travel seminar, which they were trying to teach you how to do astral travel. This one guy was teaching it as a substitute teacher because the main guy wasn't there.
Right.
And we became a little bit of friends. And he said, experiencing, he says, once I reached the jinn state, I'm like, "What's that?" He says, "Well, when you're trying to astral travel, what you do is you just jump up during the waking day. And if you float, and you know you're out of body, you're already, because if you try to jump when you're awake, you'll do it when you're asleep. And that leads you into astral travel. It's a technique."
Right.
So he thought he was, so he did this during the day when he was fully awake and went right up to the ceiling and went bam, right against it.
Wow.
Laughing as he's telling me this story. I'm like, "You're kidding." He's like, No. He couldn't speak English really well. He was Spanish.
Right.
Mexican.
Right.
Nicest guy. And you could just see he had this, the people who are really spiritual, they're calm. They've got this amazing calm energy.
It's true. But that's probably contributes to why they're able to do things such as levitation. Okay, we're going to put this question through as we're heading into the top of the hour. So, Amelia, can you get this, please?
Yes, thank you. Robert asks, Preston, does anyone teach levitation while in an OBE?
I don't know for sure. From what I do understand, there are what they would call schools on the other side. And I've been to a couple just because I'm like, hey, if there other people are doing this, I'd like to see that. And it wasn't OBE, it was telekinesis.
Oh.
So I popped out of body and I'm like, I want to see if this is true. I'm like, take me to this school where they're teaching telekinesis. Because I've heard of this secret schools on the other side where you can learn all this stuff. There's healing temples. You can meet enlightened masters. The stuff you can do out of body is amazing. Learning about past lives, going to the Akashic Library. So I kind of gave that command, which is my technique. I'm like, take me here now.
Right.
And I ended up on one, I guess the garden realms is what I would call it, the heavenly realms. I'm not really a religious guy, but it looks like your traditional heaven. And there are all these people doing telekinesis. And I can already do it when I'm on the other side. So I'm like, started doing it.
Right.
I'm pretty good at it, not to toot my own horn, but it's not that hard. Just focus on an object.
Right.
And sometimes I have to swear at it. I'm like, damn you, pen, come to me. Go. I have to summon up this anger, which is connected to poltergeist phenomena, by the way.
Right. Right.
So I shout at these, whatever object, come to me right now.
I command you. Stupid pen. Yeah. Right.
People started crowding around me like, how did you do that? I'm like, well, this is how I did it. And I ended up teaching that darn class.
Right.
I was really mad, actually. I'm like, I came there to learn.
Right.
It was fun. Yeah, I'm sure that you can. Well, the thing is, when you're out of body, you don't need to be taught how to fly. All you have to do is try.
I would agree with you.
You just jump up and you're off and going.
Yeah,
Yes.
makes
If you're a
sense.
beginner, I remember flapping my arms and trying to learn how to do it, but it's just a matter of thinking it, focusing, willpower,
Yeah.
visualization, and you can zoom and you can walk through walls.
Exactly.
I've
Yeah.
done that many times, OBE.
But you're out of body. It's pure energy. I think, we're hindered by our physical state.
Yeah, it's a different dimension. But if you can advance spiritually, you can absolutely manifest these abilities. We see it over and over again. There was Nina Kulagina from Russia, one of Russia's most famous psychics.
Right.
She could levitate objects. There was Boris Ermolaev. He could levitate anybody. He would just put his hands over them and up they would go. He did it over and over and over again.
Right.
And they asked him, how are you doing this? He says, well, I actually use reverse thinking. I don't imagine that I'm lifting them up. I imagine I'm pushing them down. And I just flip it over in my mind.
Right. And that works.
And this is an ability that's apparently hereditary, because there was one lady who said, both me and my dad could do it. She was working at a fair. Joseph Weed wrote some book on the Mystic Masters or something, and he met this girl
Right.
at a fair, and she could reduce her weight by half.
Right.
And she said, just do it by feeling light inside. It was an ability that both me and my dad had.
Right.
And there's a number of cases in the literature where it is hereditary. The royal family of Hungary had 7 members of their family, I think 5 or 7, who were reportedly levitators, all from royal blood.
Look at that. Yeah.
Wow.
Not in the Tudors.
Not that I'm aware of, but again, most people don't talk
Maybe we need to put something out there over London right now, or maybe it's Balmoral, and see if King Charles III is doing anything sneaky.
Like levitating?
Yeah.
Oh.
We don't know. He's very modernized. He fought for the last 2 decades to modernize the monarchy. So I wonder.
Maybe.
Never know.
Well, we're at the top of the hour. I can't believe it. We're here already. This always happens when you're on.
Yeah. I feel like I just sat down and it's done.
I know.
Well, I'm happy because I got to show pretty much all the really good images, the slides I have. So
Yay. See, and you'd be better to do it than me.
They were amazing. Thank
pick one up at
you.
random and I'll talk on it. But yeah, that
I
worked
know.
out.
Like, what's this? We've been bouncing around for different eras, and so it's much better for you to put it in order. So,
Major Preston at command control.
I know.
I love it.
He's a maniac with that presentation button. I'm telling you.
I really enjoy show and tell.
That's
I'm
awesome.
not going to lie. I'm a visual learner, and I love to especially see pictures of or drawings of these historical figures. I think they're so beautiful, and it's a great way to really take it in.
Yeah,
I agree.
too.
It's so cool to just actually see these people who are actually doing it.
Yeah.
Well, it's always nice to see the face behind the name, or the story rather. So it was a lot of fun, and thank you for enlightening us. I've just like gobsmacked over the whole thing because, like I said, I just never. It's just not one of those things I've really delved into. I didn't know much about it. I've heard of it, especially when you're dealing, working in a lot of the cases that I've worked at over the last 20 odd years. I think out of all of them, I may have had 3. In 2 decades, I've had 3 people claim to have levitated, with having a malevolent energy in the home. So I mean, when you're looking at the percentage, it just seemed really minute in comparison to some of the stories we're hearing tonight. I was just like, that's a lot. There's a lot of people out there who are just doing this at will. It's just so phenomenal to me.
Really amazing.
That is
I
really
know.
cool.
I gotta go zen out now. I've got to get like a little waterfall or something, start meditating and just
I
like
have
spend an
3
hour.
waterfalls. What do you need?
I know, right? Just
Well,
get
I
there.
outline all the methods in the book from the different cultures. I can't do it. I've tried.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
one day, because I am busy and I'm really caught up with the world. We've all
Yeah.
got to pay
Right.
bills, so I think that's one of the main things
Right.
that's blocking a lot of
Yeah.
people from doing it. But if you have the time to meditate,
Right.
you can do this. This is
That
very much connected to that.
yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I think that's the key is just having the time. What is this? The time thing you speak of? I don't know. I don't have much of it, But anyway,
Well,
I'm going to
at least we're
slowly
immortal, so sooner
right.
or later we'll be able to do it.
Sure, in the next life, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to sign us off. Hold tight. So, we've come to the end of another fantastic segment of the Outer Realm. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and pressing a lot of people on the page. And we've had a lot of people on our page. YouTube seems to be the big hot zone tonight as opposed to Facebook and Roku. Of course, we are live on Roku TV, but we just do not have a chat room for Roku. But you guys, if you want to go back and catch up, the archive will probably be up on Roku in a couple of days. So thanks to everybody who tuned into chat. You make it that much more fun. And big thank you to Preston Dennett, who we love and we will have back because he's just like family. Well, he is. He and Dolly are part of the United Public Radio Network family now. So that's always fantastic. You'll have to remember to go back and catch the Light Gate on Monday nights, guys, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, big thank you to Folgers Coffee, who sponsor tonight's show and every night's show. So thank you. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, Justice Snicker, for the intro, the outro. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our banners and logos. Tomorrow night, something a little bit different and new to the show, Jeff Olsner. And he's going to be discussing how his life was forever changed as an exchange student in Finhorn Foundation in Scotland. Love Scotland. I love it. Where he learned why our connection to nature is so important. So he will also talk about his groundbreaking work with climate scientists and team of remote viewers to gather insights about climate change and mitigation. I thought, oh my God, this is going to be something different. We've never done it here on the show, but I do believe in strong connections to nature. Absolutely. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. So everyone, thank you again for tuning in. I hope you guys have a fantastic day tomorrow. And don't forget to check us out tomorrow night. Thank you and good night.